Yeah. All right, so let me ask you. This is something that interesting to me. Is all right. So you've come from being a normal guy, running around with your mates, maybe having a drink in the park on the weekend, whatever you used to do when you was chilling at home, enjoying a bit of circus. To be fair, you saying you was at the skate park, so I know those skateboarders and that they've got some crazy core strength as well. So you probably did have a bit of athleticness about you. But how do you then kind of bridge the gap? Like if you're now in a circus school, for example, with somebody who's a classically trained gymnast or a classically trained, I don't know, ballet dancer or something, and they've, like you said, they've got these crazy muscles and crazy body control and able to do all these crazy things. Like once again, it kind of leads me back to that mindset that you must have to get to that to be able to compete. How did that training? What did that training? Did you have to work? Did you have to work twice as hard? Did you have to, when they're chilling, did you have to go and say, oh, I'm gonna go do 10,000 press ups by tomorrow morning? Or do you know what I mean?
Oof. Oh, I've never done that many press ups. I wish. Actually, side note, I hit my like maximum this summer that I've ever done in like one go, and I was pretty impressed. I mean, it was like not in one go, like without stopping, but like in one session, like having short rest. I think I got to like 250 press ups, and I was like,
yeah, that's crazy.
I've never done that.
I've done 150.
Probably won't do that again either.
I've done 150 in a day, doing sets of 25. That's in 24 hours, and I was proud. I shared every 25 on my WhatsApp story like I was a competitive athlete.
Yeah. Hey, you got to be a little bit proud, you know, like otherwise,
definitely.
Otherwise, you don't take any enjoyment out of what you're doing.
True story.
So I guess, like, I don't know, I'll do like a small backtrack, because just to say, like, I wasn't completely unathletic in the sense, like, my parents always wanted me, like, to be into stuff, you know. They never, you know, I mean, like anyone, you just want your kid to enjoy life and, like, do, like, find things they love. I was a competitive swimmer when I was younger. Like, I used to do swimming competitions, I think probably up until like secondary school age, somewhere in there. I remember having a coach who was like particularly mean and horrible, and I think that was kind of like the breaking point for me, was like, I don't enjoy this anymore. And then my parents got me into like badminton, which I think is probably one of the things I'll relate most to, like picking up juggling so quickly. One of the reasons I ended up getting more into it is because I could learn it so quickly, and people were just always like, how have you learned all this stuff? And I was just like, you just do the thing.
Years of chasing the shuttlecock around.
Yeah, I mean, I was like sort of I played for like the county, so I was doing like county tournaments for badminton. So yeah, I was at a pretty high level for that at the time. And yeah, I think badminton just kind of faded out as, you know, I started like growing up and doing the typical growing up things, and that also involved getting more into circus. Like, I was reaching a point where like my badminton once or twice a week was starting to overlap with things that I wanted to do. Or like, oh, there's this circus club that I wanted to go to, and you know, I'd occasionally miss a badminton session to go like have fun and do that. And then it was kind of like, oh, well, you know, so by the point I was kind of 18, 19, badminton had kind of started fading out of my life a little bit, but I'd been doing that for like, I guess probably almost like maybe 9-10 years, I don't know. So yeah, I wasn't unathletic, but let's say to a certain degree, like obviously a lot of people going into a school are like, you know, they fold in half and they do this. And when I'd moved out of my house and I decided I was going to go for circus school, I think I had like, oh, can't really see, like this kind of flexibility where I could like get to like here, like at most. And I'd given myself the goal, like before I audition, I have to be able to touch my toes. And that was just like And I like just about got it by the time I kind of did my auditions or went to school and everything. But obviously in the audition, I'd be like, oh my God, these people are like, what they
Yeah, I
can
can
do
imagine.
things. Like, I wasn't unathletic. Like, I wasn't built of muscle, but I wasn't unmuscular. I was like, I was a pretty skinny kid, you know, so I was strong but skinny. Yeah, I guess like, well, part of it is just that juggling, especially in circus school, kind of has its own like thing, you know, like you don't have to be good at acrobatics or other stuff to
Yeah, that makes
be a
sense.
good juggler. So they kind of assess you a little bit differently.
Right.
I didn't have that same interest. Like when I went to circus school, I was like, no, I want to be fucking good at everything. Like,
Best
not a lot
mentality
of
to have.
people. Yeah, a lot of people didn't have that attitude. You know, they kind of wanted to go do their thing and didn't want to do other
Specialize in
shit.
something.
Yeah, I mean, you have to specialize in something, and mine was juggling because they originally accepted me as like as a conditional juggler. I.e., most people have until the end of their first year to decide what discipline they want to do.
Right.
But they kind of accepted me under the pretense originally of being like, well, you know, you're not flexible, you're not an acrobat, you're not an aerialist. Like, they're like,
You must have been like, geez, that must have lit the fire underneath you.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, you know, I've always got I've got that strong feeling of proving people wrong. You know, that's
Definitely. That seems to be a common thread running through this life story right now.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't like people telling me I can't do things, you know.
Makes sense.
That's one thing I hate, and I hate it in general, like as a thing from people, you know. Like, don't tell someone they can't do it. You can tell someone they're not good at it, but you can't tell someone they can't be good at it, you know. Like,
Yeah.
anyone can do what they want. They've just gotta know that they can. So yeah, that was kind of that. I went in, I wasn't really good at the other stuff. I mean, I did a bit of parkour and, you know, flips and stuff with friends, but I was like before then, but I was pretty bad, let's say. But yeah, there was kind of like, I went in as a juggler, but then in the first year, everyone spends, I don't know if they do it now if you're a juggler, but when I went there, everyone does like conditioning, theatre, you know, it's like you do ballet, you do contemporary dance, you do conditioning, you do aerial conditioning, you do tumbling, you do handstands, you do theatre. I mean, there's other classes. That's just to mention a few of the main ones. So you do like, you do that all week, like all of those things. And I really took the opportunity to kind of get involved in the acrobatics and the aerial, up to the point where one of the aerial teachers was like, I want you to be an aerialist, and if you want to change your discipline, I'll argue your case to the school. And I was kind of like, I actually don't want to be an aerialist, but that has given me a certain sense of achievement, at least.
Of course.
But I didn't stop doing aerial. I just didn't want to do it as my main discipline.
Right.
I just kind of kept doing it as like a on the side thing.
How long was you in the circus school for? How long does that last?
So that's it's 3 years, but it's like a foundation course for 2 years, and then you effectively have to reapply for the third year course. So they take in like 26 people or 27 people like in the first year, and then usually the second year they take like a few less, like 20. And I think in the third year, second year it doesn't matter. I think you just often find that a couple of people drop out within the first year.
I was going to say, how many people don't make it through? Sounds like one of my favorite shows, that SAS, Who Dares Wins.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't seen the show, but I can kind of imagine it is a little bit like boot campish, you know, like you'll always find the people who are kind of into or scared of different things, you know, like some people, like you'll find some of the gymnasts, they're really into learning technically and they'll learn really quickly, but they're really closed, like emotionally. And when it comes to the theatre classes, opening up emotionally and showing, like, you know, you've got to not be afraid to show not tricks, but who you are. And you'd
Right.
often find a lot of those people, like I found a couple of people in my year, like storming out of class being like, this is ridiculous, I'm not doing this, this is embarrassing, and leaving. And then,
Okay.
and you just be like, oh,
Suck it
come
up,
on, you're
man.
literally paying for this. Like, this is such a good learning opportunity.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess, but some people, like somebody left our year after first year because they were looking for a partnership to work as like a flyer in a base. And at the end of the first year, they didn't find someone. So, you know, that's like a
Okay.
thing, you know, like some people know what they want and then the school doesn't offer it to them. And then they're
Right.
like, okay, maybe I'll go to another school. Whereas other
Mhm.
people just genuinely have no idea how difficult or how much they have to do, like how difficult it can be or how much they have to do. So they just kind of, you know, after a year or so, they're like, oh, no, I can't do this.
Yeah, I can imagine. I can imagine it must be difficult. All right, so let's get into specifics about what your skill set then, let's say. Obviously you're good at juggling.
Yeah.
Well, you're good at all the things, but let's say what are you, so when you go on tours and you're touring with a circus team, what would you call it? A team or company?
Company. Yeah,
Company. All
company.
right. So you're touring with your company, and what's your role in the show, let's say?
Well, I mean, yeah. I mean, we all kind of share roles. Like, we have the stuff we're good at, you know? So,
Hmm.
the company I'm in currently, you know, like, we all do group acrobatics to a degree. Like, we all do sort of a bit of hand-to-hand, just
Right.
like, you know, holding people in handstands and doing all of that
Handstands and
kind of
flipping
stuff.
people over and stuff.
Yeah, so we all do group acrobatics. So that's, like, a big part of our shows.
Right.
And, you know, there's stuff that I'd say I'm good at, but I don't necessarily do in the shows just because they
Hmm.
tend to focus on what we're better at often.
Right.
Like, I have a lot more stuff that I perform than that which I do with the company at the moment, for instance.
Okay.
Like, you know, like my partner, she's a gymnast and she's a really good hand balancer. So she does hand balancing and trapeze. Those tend to be the things that she does in a lot of the shows because she's good at them.
Right.
I do sort of juggling and some like balancing things, and yeah, like a lot of like sort of tumbling and group acrobatics and
Okay.
stuff. We all do, like the company I work with at the moment, we all do like theatre shows, like as
Okay.
in theatre circus shows. So we just did a run of a circus carol, which is basically a Christmas
Hmm.
carol, the
Yeah.
story, but done in circus. So for instance, in that show, I'm in a lot of scenes as like background characters or general, you know, like I do some hula hooping in like a big hula hooping scene.
Right.
Um, but I have like two acts that are like my acts. And one of them was a ball juggling scene,
Hmm.
which was kind of meant to be the past, the Christmas past,
Right.
where I'm like, it's money. So, you know, we're dealing with money and they were golden juggling balls. And it was me and Scrooge kind of when he starts getting into working as a business. And it's kind of that like bravado, camaraderie of like the two of us getting into like earning money. And that was kind
Right.
of what that scene was. And the other scene I did was an aerial chains act as Marley. So I come in as the ghost. So I come in go as Marley when he's the ghost,
Right.
and I have like these two big loops of chains that hang from the ceiling, and I do sort of like aerial like drops and twists and
What, on that
things on
metal
them.
chains?
Yeah,
On that bruise?
so much.
Right.
It's the process is a fun one. Like I hadn't been on them since like we did the show last year, and obviously you had to improve it. And it's like a month. I wasn't as bad this year because I've done it a few times now. But after not touching them for like a year, the first like 2 weeks is like
Yeah.
agony because everything bruises and swells up, and then you have to kind of train on the bruises. And
Yeah. That's what I was
but
gonna
once
say. You got to condition it.
Yeah, once I found like once you hit about 4 to 6 weeks of doing it, this time was probably a bit more like 3 weeks, I think, because my body's learned from the past a bit better.
Yeah.
But like doesn't hurt as much. Like I was still like black and blue, like around my back and my legs, but it wasn't hurting, you know?
Yeah, yeah,
Like it
yeah,
was just
yeah.
kind of like, oh yeah, that's just the color of my skin now.
Funny. My mates are gonna when my mates watch this, they're gonna be like, "Why is he going yeah, like he understands?" Not. Oh yeah. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Of course. Yeah. No, yeah, it's crazy to me because I met a guy that done but he was into, I think his dad was a taekwondo world champion, so
Okay.
raised, so he had a twin, him and his twin brother. Obviously, they've come up and his dad's trained them over years, and he was trying to teach me about leg kicks or whatever. So he
Yeah.
just told me to feel like put our shins together like this, and then just draw it back
And
and just touch them like that. And I was just like, what the hell have you got underneath your skin? It just felt like a scaffolding pole he had underneath his
yeah.
skin. Do you know what I mean? So I know that the years of conditioning just kind of changes your whole how, like your body just probably just feels different if you knock on your bones and that, and just
Yeah.
the denseness of yourself. You know?
I mean, yeah, no, for sure. Like, yeah, everything changes, like, and your brain learns to redirect like nerve endings and things harden up, and
Hmm.
yeah, it just, I mean, it's amazing what the body can do. I'm always fascinated.
Yeah.
Like, I actually joke because sometimes I've been all right now, but I actually find that I'm in more pain often, like when I take too much time off. Do you know what I
Hmm.
mean? Like when
Definitely.
my body starts going like into regression,
Yeah.
parts of my body are like, no, we need some pressure or some like something or
Yeah.
like some, to feel some kind of intensity. Like if
I
I do
I
too
can
much
imagine.
sitting around and like if it gets past a week or so, my body starts like going like, oh no, I'm not used to sitting down,
Yeah, I can imagine. I can imagine.
Like I don't have a desk job. I don't spend lots of time sitting in a chair, which is great. But
Yeah.
then when I do have lots of time at home sitting in a chair at my computer, I'm like, oh fuck, man, this is
Yeah,
this is
I
killing
can
me.
imagine. Your posture and must
Yeah.
be you must be trained back straight, legs.
Oh,
'Cause I saw even
I
that picture you
try. I
sent me earlier
try.
of your toes were just pointed like that. Ugh.
oh, that you warm my heart saying that. No, you say that like the whole going through circus school thing.
Yeah,
It's like having the acrobatics or the aerial teachers saying like, "Well done, you're really strong, but for fuck's sake, point your fucking toes."
right.
Like that was just kind of a joke to the point where I'd almost considered after like 2 or 3 years to get it like tattooed on one of my feet. So every time I looked at my feet, I would actually remember to do it. But
Yeah,
also, that was quite a few years ago now. So it has had a few years to sink in.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
when I'm there next to dancers and gymnasts who automatically point their toes, and I'm there like with little like gangly feet, like they're all like, well, you kind of did what we were trying to do, but you didn't make it look good.
Yeah. Well, wait. That picture you sent me today. I was like, geez. I showed my missus, and she was like, wow, geez. You know what I mean? Serious.
Thanks.
Like,
I like that picture. That's one of my favorite
no,
ones.
it's a good one. It's a good one. Even the other one where you're kind of half underwater, and that's a good one as
I
well.
think the joke of it is that the one balancing the club with me underwater was a lot harder than the other one.
No way.
Like, because in a certain sense, is like head balancing was like balancing on my head is a really hard skill to learn.
Yeah.
If there's any skill I would say in the circus that has been the most like demeaning, it's that one. It's
Yeah.
like literally months to years of like no progress, because it's like it's reconditioning your body to understand a different kind of balance. And so
Yeah.
there's months of like, oh, like I still feel nothing, and you just have to tell yourself, do this every day. And I wouldn't, because it was so like horrible to do, but it was like at least do it like 2 or 3 times a week, and I was like,
Yeah.
just do it, because even though it doesn't feel like anything, one day it will. And that was one of those skills where it was like, there's like literally like zero satisfaction to learning until there it was, like, 3 years later, I was like, well, I can do it now, finally.
Wow.
But once you've learned to do it, it's not like too bad. It's like riding a bike kind of skill. Like once you can do it, you can't really lose it. It's like a skill you've got.
Yeah.
Whereas the balancing the club while I was like submerged underwater, the current of the river kept taking me, and it was like, also the water was like insanely cold. So I was kind of like, we spent quite a bit of time trying to get that picture, because it was just like, anytime I would go under the water, I would just start like drifting sideways.
Mate. Okay. All right. So
I hope the listeners get to see these pictures, otherwise they have no idea
of course,
what we're talking about.
both of them, both of those pictures are going to get used for the marketing shots for the episode. So don't worry about that. They'll definitely get to see the picture. Yeah. So I'm just thinking. You sent me the info, and that. Make sure you send me the name of your. I don't know if you want to shout them out, the name of your company.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'll say it now. Like, they're Lost in Translation Circus. Like, we've got a few tours on show. Like, yeah, I mean, yeah, I've been working. They're the one that I've been working with for the last like 5 years now in Norwich. Right. So we're kind of, yeah, here, there, and everywhere. Online? We've got a bunch of shows. Sorry.
Are they online?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, so we've got Lost in Translation Circus. They're all over, Facebook, Instagram,
right.
All the usual. I think there's a Twitter too. I do a lot of stuff on the Facebook and Instagram, but I don't use the Twitter.
Right.
That sounds so old saying that. I don't use the Twitter.
Same as me, no way.
Yeah, definitely sounding older than I thought I would be. And we've also got the Oak Circus Centre, which is like the church we have, which we filled with like a circus school and where we train. So yeah.